Coast to coast. The Stephen A. Smith Show starts right now.
Welcome to the latest edition of the Stephen A. Smith Show, coming at you as I love to do every weekday over the airwaves of ESPN Radio and ESPN News, 250 plus markets across the United States of America. Check your AM, FM listing nearest you, plus ESPN Radio on Sirius XM Channel 80, plus ESPN Radio simulcast over the live national television airwaves of ESPN News. Number to call up as always is 888-SAY-ESPN. That's 888-729-3776. The Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Quote, buy and save on home insurance with Progressive's new Home Quote Explorer, only at Progressive.com. Time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. In approximately 8 minutes or so, the one and only Chris Mortensen, NFL insider extraordinaire, will be on with us to talk about some late-breaking news developing out of New York City. And, of course, obviously, Paul Feinbaum, the mouth of the South, football aficionado, college and pros as far as I'm concerned. He will be on blessing us with his presence at the top of hour number 2 of today's show. So I am definitely looking forward to that. We all know where it's time to go. We all know what it's time to talk about. The New York Giants have finally decided to get their acts together. It has been announced that Daniel Jones, quarterback out of Duke, the number 6 overall pick in this past April's NFL draft, is the new starting quarterback for the New York Giants. Eli Manning, 232 career starts since 2004 NFL record. It has come to an end. It's not consecutive starts because Bob McAdoo, the chubby Pat Riley wannabe who decided to bench Eli Manning a couple of years ago, ended up losing his job along with the GM. That's not going to be the case for Pat Shurmur. Here's the situation. Daniel Jones has been named the starter for Sunday's game at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Since 2017, Eli Manning, third worst QBR, fifth fewest yards per attempt, minimum 500 pass attempts. Eli Manning is not what he used to be. I know there's a lot of people that might question this. I have no problem with this move by Dave Gettleman, by Pat Shurmur, by John Mara, by Mr. Tisch, by the Giants organization. It is absolutely, positively the right move to make. And here's a few reasons as to why that is. New York Giants are 0-2 on the year. New York Giants have looked absolutely putrid offensively, even worse defensively, by the way. Ranked 30th in the National Football League in points allowed, ranked 28th in yards allowed, ranked 30th in yards allowed overall, in passing yards allowed, 18th against the run. The only thing decent about them is their rushing attack because Saquon Barkley is clearly the best running back in football talent-wise. They're 6th in yards accumulated offensively, but 26 in yards in points that they've scored because they've only scored 17 against Dallas, only 14 against the Buffalo Bills. Both losses, 0-2, got a game against Tampa, then a home game against Washington and Minnesota, then a game at New England on October 10th. The New York Giants stink. They are not a good team. They've got Saquon Barkley and literally nothing else to brag about. But in Daniel Jones, he provides hope. And damn it, This organization needs it. And New York Giants fans deserve it. Let me be very clear. The New York Giants have missed the playoffs 6 times in the last 7 years. Over the last 2 years that they've missed the postseason, their record is 8-24. Meanwhile, Eli Manning's about 38 years of age. He's clearly not what he used to be. Even now, this year, nearly 63% of his passes completed. In the 2 games, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, got a QBR of 30. Come on, y'all. He can't run. He can't scramble out of the pocket. He goes down at the sight of a rush. I'm not disrespecting Eli Manning. I genuinely like and respect him. And I damn sure appreciate those 2 Super Bowl championships. But when you miss the playoffs 6 times in 7 years, what the hell do you need? You need a psychic to tell you what the hell is forthcoming? I mean, enough's enough. And Daniel Jones, last time we saw him, I'm not talking about the 2 minutes at the end of the regular season game against the Dallas Cowboys to open the season, the final 2 minutes when the game was well out of hand and it was just garbage time. I'm talking about the last time we saw Daniel Jones was when Daniel Jones showed up against the first team of the Cincinnati Bengals in a preseason game and completed like 9 of 11 passes for 141 yards. Daniel Jones balled throughout the preseason. Daniel Jones was picking up the offense throughout the preseason. Daniel Jones is a big target. He's young. He's got a little bit of wheels on him. He can throw the damn football. Do I think he was Dwayne Haskins who threw 50 touchdowns in 1 season at Ohio State? And it took Daniel Jones 3 seasons to throw 52 touchdown passes at Duke? No, but it is Duke. And the level of competition he was playing with, not just against, says something. So I'm looking at Daniel Jones, and I'm saying, excuse me, he brings hope. He brings hope. And with the hope that he brings to the equation, based on a Giant squad clearly going nowhere with Eli Manning, how many times do you expect Saquon Barkley to get out there on the field and other dudes to get on the field for the New York Giants with absolutely positively no hope whatsoever of making anything happen? Why do that to the team? Why do that? Especially with your offensive line looking better than it's looked in years. Why not take a chance? You got nothing else to lose. And if he looks like garbage and he struggles, so what? Peyton Manning struggled as a rookie. Aaron Rodgers struggled as a rookie. Plenty of quarterbacks throughout NBA history had to take their lumps as rookies. There's no harm in Daniel Jones taking those licks as long as they're not literal because the offensive line is not protecting him. If he's got to throw interceptions, if he got to make mistakes, if he's got to figure out NFL defenses, etc., so be it. Kudos, props to the New York Giants for having the courage to finally make this damn move. You spent years giving New York fans a subpar product. And enough's enough. Saquon Barkley's averaging 7.8 yards a carry, y'all. 7.8 yards a carry. This is what teams stacking the line of scrimmage, knowing that the Giants' offense poses absolutely no threat whatsoever with this passing game. What is the problem? What do you expect? Saquon Barkley's a special brother, man. I do, and I will say this. See, here's where it's bad. If you're the New York Giants, it really highlights how you should have never gave away Odell Beckham Jr. It really, really does. Because for the 3rd game of the season, for you to be willing to make this switch, clearly Eli is an issue. We think he's got 2-3 more years in him. Yeah, holding the clipboard and coaching Daniel Jones, sure. But to be out on that field, come on now. And by the way, I wouldn't be surprised if Eli Manning ended up getting traded to some place like Jacksonville. I wouldn't be surprised if Tom Coughlin tried to bring him there. And why not? Blake Bortles is gone and Nick Foles is out for at least 10 weeks. You got a defense that could potentially be Super Bowl caliber. You're frustrating the hell out of Jalen Ramsey and everybody else because they know your offense stinks. And even though Eli Manning doesn't work in New York any longer, I don't think he would work in Jacksonville either personally. But he certainly would probably be a better upgrade than the rookie Minshew that you got, whatever the hell his name is. I'm just saying. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. You're listening live to Stephen A. ESPN Radio, ESPN News. Any minute now, we'll have the great one, Chris Mortensen, on the line with us to highlight some of the particulars involving the New York Giants' decision to put Daniel Jones into the lineup as a starting quarterback for Week 3 against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Actually, I think that's very, very appropriate. Jameis Winston hasn't looked that impressive. Why not go with it? But anyway, we as promised, Chris Mortensen is on the line with us right now. What's going on, sir? How are you? How's everything?
Well, I can tell you're having a better day than yesterday.
Yes, I am. More.
Okay.
I am. And let me
Tom Jackson and I get concerned about you sometimes when we see that I'm having a very bad day.
Let me tell you something right now. I'm giving you a virtual hug here because leave it to my man Chris Mortensen to look out for me and to give me some semblance of good news, for crying out loud. Listen, Daniel Jones is the starting quarterback. How did it come to be in Week 3 of this season, Chris?
Well, I think number one is that Daniel Jones showed, and you can say proved in quotes because it was only OTAs and training camp and preseason. He showed Pat Shurmur, the coach, that he is ready to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. And Shurmur has said that frequently. I also think that the Giants' position was, basically, as long as we're in contention or a contender, Eli's going to be our starter. Eli's not getting benched because of his play in the first 2 weeks of the season. He's getting benched because that defense and that team is not a playoff contender. And so, therefore, I think that Shurmur feels like, let's get on with the business of Daniel Jones. I'm not sure it's the greatest time to put Daniel in there, but he feels he's mentally tough. Listen, believe it or not, the Buccaneers defense with Todd Bowles is pretty good. But, you're talking about a team that just played a game without the top two receivers, Sterling Shepard, who had a concussion, Golden Tate, who's still on suspension.
Right.
Cody Latimer got hurt. And a defense that gives up points like crazy. So I think it's just, listen, I'm not sure it's a great time to throw Daniel Jones in there, but just from talking to Shurmur and during the training camp, and also talking to David Cutcliffe. Ironically, Eli Manning's offensive coordinator, our head coach at Ole Miss, and Daniel Jones, head coach at Duke, it feels like he's very mature and able to withstand tough times, and tough times are ahead.
Well, Mort, I got to ask you this, though. I hear what you're saying about Eli Manning, but you see the numbers. Since 2017, third worst QBR, fifth fewest yards per attempt. We know, I mean, the man can't scramble. He goes down at the sight of a rush, for crying out loud. He's clearly not what he used to be, and the Giants have missed the playoffs 6 times in the last 7 years. I understand what you're saying about the first 2 games of this season, and that definitely can't be disputed. But there is no doubt that there's been a dissipated level of skill exhibited by Eli Manning, and that people have been clamoring for a change for a long time. Why isn't it just cool to say, you know what, it's time to move in a different direction? The Eli Manning era needs to come to an end in New York.
Well, I mean, listen, I've heard those voices, and I think that you have numbers and maybe your eyes will support that. By the way, self-survival by quarterbacks has been adopted by many veteran quarterbacks along the way. And you can't tell Carson Wentz not to be going head first or whatever where Peyton Manning and Tom Brady are smart enough to get down and not get hit. Now, Daniel Jones does bring a certain level of athleticism. I had somebody tell me watching him in training camp that it's kind of like watching Josh Allen in Buffalo play. You don't realize how athletic he is until you see it in person. But let's go back and look at the last 8 or 9 drafts and personnel decisions by the Giants. And if we forget, this is a team game. And if your team, if you're getting hit, if your receivers aren't in the right spot at the right time, and I still believe that there's a lot of aspects here. I think Eli went into this season in the best shape of his life. His arm was live. I went to the Manning camp. Trevor Lawrence and Justin Herbert, all these young shot quarterbacks. Eli outthrew them all. But it is a game that's played amongst team, and I personally think that it's been a bad team. I think they've done a bad job in personnel for a while, and we're seeing the fruits, and really the rotten fruits of what they did or didn't do in the last 7 or 8 years through the draft.
Chris Mortensen right here with Stephen A., ESPN Radio, ESPN News. If anybody would know more, it would be you. What exactly have the players been saying to Pat Shurmur, to Dave Gettleman about Daniel Jones and his need to be in the lineup? Because we know throughout history, sometimes a coach is forced to make these decisions because you have personnel on your roster that's clamoring for a guy because they believe he's got the goods. Is that what transpired here as it pertains to Eli Manning compared to Daniel Jones?
I think it's an erroneous jump, with all due respect, to suggest that players would go to the head coach or general manager and say, we got to get Daniel Jones in there.
Okay.
I will say this. They certainly sense the excitement from players and from coaches and the front office with what they have seen from Daniel Jones. But I've had no indication in talking to people there that this is something that the players saying, let's get Daniel in there. Let's get Daniel in there. No, I really think Daniel's earned this on his own merits, and the combination that the fact that this Giants team is not very good. And I think I have read and heard people say, let's not waste Saquon Barkley's good years, like Detroit did with Barry Sanders. There may be some level of truth to that. Mm-hmm. But right now, the Giants' problem is not Eli Manning. The Giants' problem is that defense and having really a battered group of receivers.
Well, I appreciate it because I clearly wasn't trying to suggest that the players actually did that. I was asking because I said if anybody would know whether that had occurred, it would be you. I'm talking to Chris Mortensen right here with Stephen A., ESPN Radio, ESPN News. That's all I was asking. So having said all of that, where does that leave Eli Manning now? Is he the guy that's going to wait to get back in? Is he the guy that's going to carry a clipboard and be an extension of the coach? Or could it be possible that he'd be looking to be moved, to be traded because he believes that he still has a few years left left in his career?
I haven't had that direct conversation with Eli, but here's what I believe about Eli is that he and his wife Abby have 4 children. They're all under 8 years old. They really love where they live there in New Jersey. They're established in school. Mm-hmm. He loves being the New York Giants, and at the same time, he saw his Peyton, because of injury, ended up playing and resurrecting his career despite incredible obstacles physically in Denver. They're not the same guys. But one thing you have to remember is that Peyton in his last year was hurt in Denver, and who came in? Brock Osweiler replaced him, and their intent there was that Osweiler was going to finish that year as a starter, and Peyton would finish on the bench. But by rehabbing and holding the clipboard and being in that quarterback meeting room and making sure they were ready to play and holding other players around them accountable, making sure they were doing the right thing, what happened? You know the answer to it.
Yeah.
They went back to Peyton near the end of that season, and they ended up winning the Super Bowl, even if he wasn't the sensational Peyton. I think that Eli wants to remain a Giant. I think that I know he has a no-trade clause. It doesn't make sense right now. Other teams, their situations don't match up, and you have a salary cap situation where some of these teams, like the Jaguars with Nick Foles and Drew Brees and Saints, those quarterbacks are coming back, and they're making a lot of money.
Forgive me if this is a silly question, but did the Giants make this move with the idea that Daniel Jones is our starting quarterback from here on out, or did they make this move to say, okay, let's see what he's got, and we always have Eli to fall back to?
They made the move that Daniel Jones is our starting quarterback, and we're going forward, and that's really what this is. There's nothing. There's nothing more than that. And I think when Pat Shurmur said what he said yesterday at the press conference, you knew then that you don't say that unless you're moving to Daniel Jones. And I think they've determined that they're not a playoff team.
Last question for you. John Mara was on the record a few months ago saying that he had hoped to not see Daniel Jones this season at all because that would mean Eli Manning was having a great season, and that's what he was anticipating, not to see Daniel Jones at all. Is this a Pat Shurmur and Dave Gettleman decision, or it seems obvious that they would talk to ownership about this simply because it's Eli Manning? Is that fair to assume?
Yeah. I think you're right on all marks. I mean, listen, like I said, the best hope for the franchise, I think it was John Mara was saying when he said it was, we hope we're in contention and we don't have to go to Daniel Jones. What did Dave Gettleman say at the Combine before the draft when it was clear they were going to draft the quarterback? And he said, I prefer the Kansas City model, meaning Patrick Mahomes. You sit all year behind Alex Smith, and then you'll take over the job. So that, to me, was always their intent, but this roster was not good enough to carry that out.
Chris Mortensen, appreciate it. Great work as always, buddy. Thanks so much for calling me, man. Really appreciate it.
All right, Stephen A. Love you. Talk to you later.
Same, love you too. The one and only Chris Mortensen right here with Stephen A. One of the great ones to have ever be an insight on the NFL in this business. Make no mistake about it. 888-SAY-ESPN. That's 888-729-3776. You are listening live to the Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio, ESPN News. By the way, we'll get to your calls and more in just a minute. Don't touch that dial. Just getting this party started. By the way, did you know overall job satisfaction is at its highest level in 15 years? Wow, 51%. Wait, what? That's barely half. Would you see a doctor with a 51% patient satisfaction? Please, you know.